So let's start with what is an audio interface. An audio interface is something that you plug a microphone or an instrument into, and then it passes that signal into your computer so it can be recorded into, say, Logic or GarageBand or Ableton or any DAW. You need an audio interface in order to interface the analog world and the singing or the playing to the computer. So it gives you the option to record what you have down into a digital format that we can edit and mess around with inside a DAW. Now in my small studio, I use 3 different audio interfaces. I have a main audio interface, which is behind me, which has many inputs and outputs. But today I'm going to be talking to you about my portable interface, which is this one, the Focusrite 2i2. You can see on the front here, you've got 2 separate inputs here. You've got 2 separate things that look like you could plug stuff into them. These are combination inputs, so these are jack and XLR inputs. Now most of the time a microphone will use an XLR lead, so you can plug microphones into these, but then an instrument will use a jack lead. You can also plug the jack lead into these. Each of these inputs come with a gain control, so the amount of volume you are giving to that signal coming in, whether it's your voice, whether it's microphones that you've got mic'd up for a guitar amp, or whether it's a guitar that you plug straight in, direct input, or DI it's also known as. You also have switches on the front, which you can switch from line level to instrument level, because the difference between line level and instrument level is slightly different. You can also see as we move along, we've got some more options to this side of the audio interface. We have a button which says 48V. Hopefully you can see that there on the camera. This button is what you would press if you are using a condenser microphone. A condenser microphone needs external power in order to give it more gain. Now I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Next you have a monitoring switch where you can pick direct monitor or what's coming back out of the DAW. This gives you the option to hear what's coming in before it gets converted to a digital signal, or after it's been converted to a digital signal. So what's either coming straight in without any effects or processing in your DAW, or afterwards where you do hear the processing from the DAW. And then lastly, we've got some volume knobs, one for an overall volume for your speakers, and then a dedicated headphone volume. If we go to the back of the interface, you will see not many connections. We have 2 jacks, these are your outputs, this is what goes to your speakers, and we also have a USB connection. This USB connection is what is going to connect this to your computer. Now, much like other audio interfaces, the Focusrite 2i2 is known as plug and play, meaning you physically plug it into your computer and it will show up as an option for an audio interface or an audio device. It will be different where you choose these, whether you're on a Mac system or a Windows system, but it's usually found in the sound preferences, whether that's on the operating system of the computer itself or any DAW application. You would find the preferences or the settings, go to the audio settings and pick this as an audio interface, as it will automatically show up as the Focusrite 2i2. So I said I was going to talk about condenser microphones and others. This is a condenser microphone. This is the Blue Mic's Bluebird. It is slightly battered because I've had this for just over a decade now. This is my vocal microphone. I take this to anywhere that I go to record vocals remotely. I also record all of the lectures through this. It's my microphone. It's my condenser microphone. Now, this is very different to this. This is a Shure SM58, also in horrendous condition. Look at the top of that there, nice flat top. This is a dynamic microphone. This needs no external power. Now, because it needs no external power, you probably need to give it more gain on your audio interface. So if I was to plug this microphone into this audio interface, I would need an XLR cable from this end of the microphone to plug it in. I'd plug the other end into here. I would make sure 48 volts is not illuminated or turned on, and I would adjust my gain here accordingly in order to get the right amount of volume for my recording. Now, if I was to be using this microphone instead, I would do exactly the same thing with the connection. I would plug an XLR into this end and then the other end into this end, but 48 volts would need to be on. This is what's going to give it its extra power. Now, because it's being given extra power and a boost in terms of its amplification, we don't need to have as much gain on our input knob. Luckily, on the 2i2 interface, you get some sort of feedback on the outside ring of the knob. So it will show you when you've got audio coming in, the outer ring will shine out green. If you start to get too loud and a bit too hot, as it's known, it will shine red. So it will give you a good indication of you've gone too far with your gain input. So what's the point of why do we have 2 different sorts of microphones? These are only two different kinds. There's other types of microphones like ribbon microphones, which we'll get to in a later video. But what's the point of having two different mics? Well, this you will probably see or recognize from many performances. This is an excellent live microphone. The reason for that is, number one, it's cardioid pattern, meaning that it will only pick up audio from the front of the microphone. It doesn't pick up audio from anything behind the microphone. So if you were on stage, for instance, or performing, the audience wouldn't get picked up on your microphone, only you will, because you're talking into the front. The other thing with this being good for live is that it can handle very high sound pressure level, also known as SPL. This means that you could literally shout into this and the microphone will be able to take it. There is a small diaphragm in here. Actually, I'll show you. You can unscrew the top. Don't worry, I'm not breaking it. You can unscrew the top here, and then underneath you can see the actual capsule of the microphone. This is basically a backwards speaker. So in theory, you could plug audio into this, coming out of your audio interface, plug it into this, put it up to your ear, and you'd be able to hear it coming out as a speaker. This is the same thing with headphones. You could take your headphones and plug them into a input or a microphone input and talk through it, and it will pick up the signal. This is because it is just a passive microphone. There's no extended power. You don't need 48 volts, for instance, or phantom power, as it's known, to run it. It just takes the signal through. You talk into it, it picks up the sound pressure, the waves move, the diaphragm, that turns into an electrical current, which runs down the microphone, down through to the audio interface, and is converted into what we hear. That's probably as sciencey as I'll get with this video, but that's how this works. Now, the same sort of principle applies with this one. However, this is known as a large diaphragm condenser, meaning the diaphragm that is inside this bit in here is quite large, and it is made slightly differently. You have two different plates, one of which the sound bounces on. It bounces through to a back plate, which then runs that signal down. Again, without getting too sciencey, this can pick up so much more detail in the audio or the source material. So for live recordings, let me just put the hat back on this one. So for live performance, this one's really good. It picks up directly from the front. It can deal with high sound pressure levels, so I could sing right the way into it, right up close to my mouth, and it's not going to damage the microphone. Whereas with this one, this is more a studio style microphone. It sits in one place. You generally don't hold a condenser microphone because it will pick up all of the movement from your hand and as bass frequencies and so on. Kind of stays where it is, and you sing towards it because it picks up all the nuances of the mouth. It can pick up all those sorts of sounds and so on. Depending if you like that or not, you can get rid of it in the recording, but it gives you the option to capture it. This is excellent for vocals. This is excellent for overhead microphones. Basically anything that is not super close with a dynamic, really sharp transient. This is why most of the time drum microphones or close mic drum microphones, things like snare drums and kick drums, are dynamic microphones, whereas overheads, microphones are a little bit further away from the source, are condenser microphones. So just to recap, because we went off on a little bit of a tangent there, this is the Focusrite 2i2 plug and play audio interface. It will plug into a Mac, it will plug into a Windows computer or laptop. It is simple. You have two outputs on the back that go straight to your speakers. You have a dedicated headphones output with a dedicated volume for that, but you have two inputs. One which could be for a vocal microphone and the other for your guitar microphone. You could have two vocal microphones. You could have two microphones set up on a guitar amp where you plug your guitar into the amp and mic it up with these. The only thing you need to remember, 48 volts needs to be on if you're using a condenser microphone, because a condenser microphone needs extended power. A dynamic microphone doesn't need that. You can plug this straight in to the front. It just means that you'll probably need to crank up your gain a little bit more. So, what microphone are you? Are you more of a live performer? If so, go for a dynamic mic. Are you more of a studio recording artist? If so, I'd strongly suggest going for a condenser microphone. There are many different microphones and there are many different audio interfaces. I'm just showing you the Focusrite 2i2 today because it is probably one of the most affordable interfaces. It's very, very simple. It sounds good and it is durable. I've had this for about 6 years and it is solid. There's many that have come after this one, but they don't break. They're excellent audio interfaces. And like I say, I travel with this one. Anywhere I go in my backpack, I have this. I have an SM58. I rarely take that condenser microphone unless I know I'm going to a studio. But these two, with an XLR lead and a USB lead and a computer, you're ready to go. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Good night.